Back on January 21st, 2017, which was the first full day of Donald Trump's first term, the first press briefing from his first press secretary, Sean Spicer, included what was probably among the most petty and inconsequential falsehoods peddled by Trump and his allies at this point. Remember this?
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Period. Who could forget it? And then there was also this. The next day, when Trump's then senior counselor, Kellyanne Conway, appeared on NBC's Meet the Press, where Chuck Todd challenged her on the actual falsehood.
You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts?
Period. It wasn't the lie itself that mattered, but it was what it signaled. The size of Trump's inauguration crowd was never of any consequence whatsoever. That's right, folks. Size doesn't matter. But his obsession with it, his insistence about lying about it and then getting his staff to lie about it, and the invention of so-called alternative facts, all of this pointed to a new era in politics and journalism, and frankly, in our country's collective regard for the truth. The Washington Post started a tally of the number of false or misleading comments that Donald Trump made during his first term. They found that at least 30,000 of those were made in his first 4 years. But as journalists have worked to hold Donald Trump to account, Trump has continuously pushed back. He popularized the idea of fake news. He has repeatedly labeled the media the enemy of the people. Just before this year's election, Trump said he wouldn't mind if an assassin shot through, quote, the fake news standing in front of him. On at least 5 occasions during his first term, his administration selectively excluded some news organizations from press briefings, taking back press credentials from individual journalists and barring some outlets. He's even suggested that entire media companies, including ABC, CBS, and NBC News, should lose their broadcasting licenses altogether. And now, Donald Trump has chosen Kash Patel to head the FBI, a man who has explicitly promised to come after the media. Listen to this.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
That is the landscape that journalists and media companies are facing in a new Trump term. And for more on this, I am joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones. She is a domestic correspondent for the New York Times Magazine and the creator of the 1619 Project. But for you all's purposes, the most important thing you need to know is that she teaches at my alma mater, Howard University. That's what you need to know. Now, Nikole, thank you so much for being here this morning. I want to start by asking you, at this point, it might even be somewhat of a badge of honor that the 1619 Project has basically been singled out by Donald Trump in terms of he's threatening to stop funding to schools that engage that as part of their curriculum. What does that say to you, not just as the creator of the project, but as someone whose background is rooted in journalism and storytelling and truth-telling?
Well, I think what it says to me is that we are facing an epic battle in the next 4 years with an administration that we know, as you just laid out, has a history of attacking journalists, of calling for violence against journalists, of suing journalists, of surveilling journalists, and also seeking to legislate against the work of journalists, which is what Trump tried to do with the 1619 Project. So we as a press face a time where the Committee to Protect Journalists says we are seeing more attacks on the press than we've seen. We are seeing more threats against the press and a fear of restriction of press freedoms.
I think that truth-telling in any form requires a degree of courage. And that courage in a country where we enjoy freedom of the press probably has not been tested to the degree that it is likely to be tested over the next 4 years. Some of what I predict may be the backlash to this has to come from the public, not just from journalists or that media space. What do you think it's actually going to take before the public starts taking this as serious as it should be?
So I don't ever try to predict the future. I think we can't tell what voters in the public are going to do. But I think what's critical is that the public understands, why does the press exist? Why does the press exist in a free society? Why are we the only profession protected by the First Amendment? It's because the founders, for all their flaws, understood that you cannot have a democracy if you do not have an independent press that can hold power accountable. We exist to inform the public. We exist to serve as a check on power, to be a watchdog. And so when, in fact, an administration is attacking the press, they're attacking the public's right to know. They're attacking the public's right to actually understand the inner workings of government so we can choose, is this the government we want or not? So we have the ability to fight back against things that we don't agree with or that we think are anti-democratic. So I hope that the public will understand that there's a reason why authoritarians target the media, why they try to discredit the media, and why they threaten the media. They want to make us afraid to do our jobs. They want to make the public not believe what it is that we report when we expose the way that power is being used against us. And I think that we have to be really worried as a press that we are not doing, as Timothy Snyder said, obeying in advance, that we are not getting exhausted, that we are not simply saying, well, Trump lies all the time. So we start to be accepting of those lies as normal. Right. I think that that's why I'm saying we are facing an epic battle, but the public has to be involved in that battle. The public, whether they don't like what we do all the time, whether they don't agree with what we do all the time, they have to understand that they must protect the press if they want to maintain a free society. You know,
threading that needle between engagement and exhaustion is something that I have conversations with people about all the time. I want to talk to you about the notion of the intersection of where you sit and others like you in particular, being someone in media and journalism, but also being a Black woman, and how that uniquely shapes your lens going into the next 4 years as any one of those groups faces a special and unique set of attacks, but then to have the culmination of what that represents in one person, in one human body, how does that change how you navigate the space of doing what you're supposed to do as a storyteller?
Well, we can look at the way that Trump used his most vile rhetoric and attacks against Black women journalists, right? Against Yamiche Alcindor, against April Ryan. We saw this again and again. So we can expect more of that. And there's a reason for that, right? That Black women hold a very particular position in this society. Black women also were those who voted against Trump at the highest rates of all racial groups. And so when Black women seek to hold that power accountable, that's seen as more dangerous, and that Black women are less protected in this society. So I know that as a Black woman journalist, you know, my former Twitter handle, I'm no longer using X as a platform anymore, was Ida Bae Wells. And that was me always trying to center myself in a tradition of the Black press, a tradition of Black women who were determined to tell the truth, even if it cost them. We know that when Ida B. Wells spoke the truth about white people lynching Black men, that her newspaper was burned down, that she was forced out of her community, that she became a refugee away from Memphis. And so we understand as Black women what is required of us to be journalists and to tell the truth. But that also means that because of that history, we stand on strong shoulders, and we are going to continue to do what we've always done, which is hold power accountable in this country.
And your last statement made me think about something that I hadn't planned to ask, but I will now. Given how the results in November played out with respect to exit polling and everything that we saw, has the coalition or any notion of a coalition between Black women journalists in the space been tampered with, broken down, or has that had no impact on how you all are approaching moving forward and working with other groups?
I definitely am hearing from a lot of Black women that they feel betrayed, that they feel alone in the struggle. And that's not including Black men, but that's including others who are not Black, right? And that there is a sense of exhaustion, of wanting to step back, but then very quickly there's the reality that we don't have a choice, that we can't step back. So I know a lot of Black women who are taking these last few weeks of the year before the new administration comes in to really fortify themselves, to try to replenish those reserves. And then the Black women I know fully intend to fight for our communities, to fight to protect the most vulnerable, and to hope to rebuild those coalitions, because the thing about being Black in America, we're 13% of the population. We have to build coalition. There's no way for us to safeguard our communities, to push forward an agenda that we consider to be humanistic without building coalition. So, you know, Black women are human beings. We have a right to be tired. We have a right to be upset. But then Black women are going to go out and do what Black women have always done, which is try to save this country from itself.
If that ain't Black brilliance, I don't know what is. I have been waiting for this conversation today for a very long time, and it did not disappoint. Thank you so much, Nikole Hannah-Jones, for being with us. Howard University professor, again, remember that.